So happy 4th of July. It's Independence Day. And embracing the idea of a world that works for everyone isn't necessarily about changing the Constitution or the institutions. It's about freeing our minds instead. Creating our future and our own destiny through the power of our thinking, through the choices that we make. As religious scientists, which most people really think is kind of an oxymoron to have religion and science in the same breath, we believe that God, Buddha, Allah, whatever you choose to call the higher power, is personal to all who feel its indwelling presence. We believe that the ultimate goal of life is to be emancipated from discord of every nature. We also believe that this goal is attainable by everyone, regardless of race, creed, religious beliefs, or socioeconomic backgrounds. Our mind and every mind in the universe is part of the one mind. And this infinite intelligence, by its very nature, is unlimited. Once we begin to grasp the concept of this interconnectedness, we discover that we can indeed make a difference in our world. Learning to access the creative nature of our mind until our thoughts become our reality is both a scientific and also inspirational process. Entertaining greater mental and spiritual concepts allows our experience to grow and expand and become more vibrant and richer. And Thomas Jefferson, in his letter to John Adams on August 22nd in 1813, said, "I suppose belief to be the assent of the mind to an intelligible proposition." So no matter what we discover or where we look, unless we develop a deep reverence for our own inner life, we become slaves to our surroundings. The idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are an important aspect of our spiritual growth. And George Washington, John Quincy Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and many of the founding forefathers of our country were deists, which is a form of monotheism. They believed that the universe has a creator, and that this creator doesn't interfere or communicate directly with humans, either by revelation or through sacred books, which the Mother Church in England was advocating at the time. So the Declaration of Independence is actually a radical departure from the idea that the power to rule over other people comes from God. Not to say that they didn't speak of God, but they called it the God of nature, a God who allows the universe to run itself according to natural laws. Go figure. Poof! There goes the sky god of my childhood. So ultimately, President Thomas Jefferson defined our inalienable rights as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And in the original version of the Declaration of Independence, not the one that Congress later shifted a little bit, he said, "All men are created equal and independent. From that equal creation, they derive rights inherent and inalienable." The later version, which contained some religious overtones, changed to, they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. And being the wordsmith that I am, I look everything up. And in Webster, in means complete inclusion. Un means not. So it kind of intimates a whimsical creator, if you will. One who may or may not let those alienable rights actually be yours. And Thomas Jefferson was also against slavery. So he was a pretty radical dude in his time. He once used a razor blade to remove every verse from the traditional version of the Bible that dealt with superstition. He wanted to reveal the inherent essence of that something which he called the God of nature. And his version, as a result of all of that removal, is called the Jefferson Bible. And it was actually printed by order of Congress, and at one time it was given to all the newly elected members. So what's important about all of this? Although America was shaped by Christian moral truths, it was founded by deists who created a regime that was open to Christians as well as practitioners of other different religions, aka think a new idea of freedom, which is the title of my talk this morning. So how do we do this? How do we think a new idea of freedom? There are 5 different concepts, and the first one is mental house cleaning. And Dr. Ernest Holmes, in his New Design for Living, says that no progress was ever made by the individual who was satisfied with the status quo. So hello, I'm leaving my comfort zone. I'm going to step out and stand on a skinny branch. The science of mind teaching is not a rose-tinted spectacle teaching. It takes work to clear out our subjective belief systems. Bringing and building a new consciousness through our ouches helps us to gain a greater understanding of who we really are as spiritual beings. The potential for greater expression of joy already exists. It's inherent within us, like it's inherent within everything. But the question becomes, are we ready to think a new idea of freedom? If the old ways of thinking were still working, we'd be living in huts. And Fawn will tell you how grateful we are that I now have air conditioning in my car. One of those new inventions that's wonderful. When we left Colorado, it was 53 degrees. And when we got here, it was 103. And there wasn't any air conditioning in the car. So God bless Fawn. Thank you for taking that journey with me. So we have to release our limitations in order for the evolutionary process to move through us, to expand us, to empower us to become what we're destined to be. The second way to think a new idea of freedom is through our creative expression. So let's affirm together, I am always creating perfection. I am always creating perfection. Dr. Holmes tells us that the life within us needs to be expressed. When we block the flow of our good, we fall apart mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. When we open to the flow of good, the universe creates every possibility we can imagine through this incredible thing called synchronicity. Anyone experience that? So consciously or unconsciously, we are always creating. Our thought creates a form or a pattern, what Dr. Ernest Holmes likes to call a spiritual prototype of whatever we believe at depth. So if you don't like what's happening around you, I would suggest that you fill out the prayer request that's in your program and then get ready for shift to happen. Thinking a new idea of freedom is about remembering what we really are. So let's affirm together. I am whole, perfect, and complete. I am whole, perfect, and complete. My mind is not separate from my body.
My mind is not separate from my body.
My body is not separate from the intelligence that created it. And so it is. So mind, body, spirit, emotion, that connection is an all-inclusive spiritual reality. How you program and feel about this reality is how you are going to respond to it and how it is going to present itself to you. What we think as spirit moves through the law of mind and becomes our body as well as our body of affairs. The more we understand about the nature of God, the more we develop our relationship with this higher power, the more good we attract into our experience. Is there a limit to this creative action in our experience? Absolutely. The one that we create for ourselves. So accessing and utilizing the power is the fourth way to think a new idea of freedom. So let's affirm together. There is a power for good in the universe. There is a power for good in the universe, and we can use it. And we can use it. So this power for good doesn't know no. It only knows to give. And the action of any law, whether physical or spiritual, is in no way concerned with size or density. For example, if I drop this feather, it falls to the earth. If I drop this rock, it also falls to the earth. That is gravity, always working at all times. Scientists have discovered how these physical laws work. Practitioners have discovered how the spiritual laws work. Dr. Ernest Holmes tells us that we need to remember freedom is based upon the action of law, and that the success of that freedom will be determined by the level of our understanding. So if certain things are done, certain results occur. That's called the law of cause and effect. For example, let's say that you're working on a relationship and you declare that all the good men or women are taken. What's going to happen? The most colorful scoundrel in the world is going to knock on your front door. Which brings me to the fifth final way to think a new idea of freedom. And that is through affirmative, creative thinking. Now notice I didn't say positive thinking, because positive thinking denotes the possibility that there could be negative thinking. And we know that everything in the universe is on purpose. So all we have ever thought, felt, or experienced is stored in our subjective mind. And that mind is part of the infinite mind. Imagine yourself like a flash drive, and you put the flash drive into the computer. And the little icon will pop up and say, "Are you sure you want to delete?" If we say yes, all our old limited thought patterns go into the recycle bin. And that changes the entire content of that universal system, that computer, that infinite mind. Dr. Holmes tells us it is most certain that the one who tries, who dares to think anew, who seeks to conform with the great laws of life, will soon discover that he is on the way to a fuller expression and experience of life. So transforming what appears to be negative into something that appears to be positive takes courage. However, it is only through the power of our conscious mind that we can overrule our subjective belief systems. You say you got a real solution. Well, we'd all love to see the plans. You ask me for a contribution. If you want money for people with minds that hate, all I can tell you is, brother, you'll have to wait. When you talk about destruction, don't you know that you can count me out? When you say you want a revolution, well, we all want to change the world. You say you want to think a new idea of freedom. Well, we all have to be the change we want to see. And when we are, don't you know, it's going to be all right. Thank you, and namaste. I didn't sing for you, so, And now I invite you to stand.